Hello friends, welcome to Veena's Educate. In the previous video we learned that leaf is a food factory of the plant and chloroplasts are the sites where photosynthesis takes place. Today we shall learn about the mechanism of photosynthesis. If you really want to prepare biryani and you do not know how to prepare the dish biryani, what do? You ask your mother, you ask your friends, or go to the YouTube, find out what are the ingredients required, what is the process of preparing this dish, and at what time which ingredient has to be added, and the whole process, how it takes place, and finally how it is prepared. Same way, the leaf also requires certain ingredients. Here we don't call it as ingredients, we call it as raw materials. The raw materials required for photosynthesis is carbon dioxide, water, sunlight, and chlorophyll. These are the raw materials. And where does it take place? Where do you prepare your biryani? You prepare it either in your kitchen or elsewhere. So here also, what are the sites where this process takes place? It takes place in the chloroplast of the leaf. This is the place, chloroplast in the leaf is the place where this process takes place. And you prepare by different process, no? Your dish, you prepare either by shallow frying, by deep frying, by steaming. These are the various processes how you prepare your dish. Same way the process here is photosynthesis. So the process is photosynthesis. The raw materials are carbon dioxide, water, sunlight, chlorophyll, and the sites are the chloroplast present in the leaf. Okay. So these are the raw materials and the process. Now let us learn what is photosynthesis and how this mechanism takes place. How to prepare, how the leaf prepares glucose. Using all these materials, how does it prepare glucose? Before we learn about photosynthesis, let us learn about two terms. That is, what is oxidation and what is reduction. Oxidation is like when a substance loses an electron. When a substance loses an electron, then the substance is said to be oxidized. When a substance accepts an electron, then the substance is said to be reduced. Hope you all understood what is oxidation, what is reduced. When a substance is said to be oxidized and when a substance is said to be reduced. Because I will be using these terms when I talk about mechanism. Now, let us learn about mechanism. Photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is a process where light energy is converted into chemical energy through a process of through a series of reactions in the chloroplast. That is photosynthesis. How photosynthesis takes place? It takes place in two phases. One is the light phase and the other is the dark phase. Now let us learn about light phase. What happens? Light phase is the phase where light energy is required. Okay, you have already learnt in my previous video that light energy consists of materials like photons, and inside the photons you have the energy known as quanta. So when light falls on the leaf, the chlorophyll pigment which is present in the leaf, it accepts the light energy, it absorbs the light energy, it absorbs the energy that is quanta present in the light, and then it gets oxidized. I told you just now that what is oxidized? When it absorbs the light energy from the sunlight, it loses an electron and that electron rises to a higher state. When it loses an electron, the chlorophyll molecule, it becomes oxidized. Now this oxidizing power of the chlorophyll molecule, it splits the water molecule into protons, electrons, and oxygen is released. So you have just now learned that immediately as the light falls on the leaf, the chlorophyll molecule, it will absorb the light and the energy from the light. It gets oxidized, it loses an electron, gets oxidized, and this oxidizing power of the chlorophyll molecule will split the water molecule into protons, electrons, and oxygen is released. Now, it has lost its electron, so the chlorophyll pigment, what it does is, again it accepts the electrons which is produced during the splitting of water, and then again it comes back to the original state. The same process again begins. Again it absorbs the light energy, it loses an electron, gets oxidized, again it splits the water molecule and oxygen is released. So this process takes place continuously, and this process where the chlorophyll molecule is splitting the water molecule into protons, electrons, and oxygen, this process is known as photolysis. Photolysis or photolysis. Photo means light and lysis is breaking up. So photolysis is a process where the water molecule is split with the light, due to light energy. Now, you have this oxygen is released into the atmosphere. These electrons are absorbed again by the chlorophyll, oxidized chlorophyll molecule, and then chlorophyll comes back to its original place. What is left out is the protons. Now these protons, they get collected in the thylakoids of the chloroplast. They get collected, and when the concentration of these protons become higher in the thylakoids, they move into the stroma. They move into the stroma, and this movement of these protons from the thylakoid membranes into the stroma, it produces ATP. It produces ATP and NADPH. Okay, so the movement of these protons from the thylakoid membranes into the stroma, it produces energy, that is ATP and NADPH. What is the full form of ATP? ATP is adenosine triphosphate and nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate. The full form of NADPH is nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate. So now you have learned that at the end of light phase, this marks the end of light phase, and the end products of light phase is oxygen is released, ATP is formed, and NADPH is formed. So if you are asked what is the end product of light phase, the end product of light phase is oxygen, ATP, NADPH. What is photolysis? Photolysis is the splitting of the water molecule into protons, electrons and oxygen. So this marks the end of light phase. Now we shall learn about the dark phase. Let us learn about dark phase. Dark phase is the phase where light is not required. It does not mean that it takes place in the night time. It takes place during the daytime, but this process does not require light. So hence it is known as dark phase. And this dark phase was investigated by a scientist named Melvin Calvin, and he also received a Nobel Prize for his work. And so this dark phase is also known as Calvin cycle. You can also call it as Calvin cycle. Dark phase is also known as Calvin cycle because it was investigated by a scientist Melvin Calvin, for which he also received the Nobel Prize. Now here what happens is, the carbon dioxide which was not used in the light phase, now it will be used up in the dark phase. Here 1 molecule of carbon dioxide, it gets converted into 6 molecules of ribulose 1,5-phosphate. Okay, this is a 5-carbon molecule. It is a 5-carbon molecule, and this 6 ribulose 1,5-diphosphate, it again gets converted into 6 molecules of hexose sugar 1,5-phosphate, and this is a 6-carbon molecule. And this 6-carbon molecule is very unstable, so it spontaneously undergoes a reaction and then gets converted into 2 molecules of phosphoglyceric acid, and this is 3 carbon each is a 3-carbon molecule. So it gets converted into 2 molecules of phosphoglyceric acid. Now this phosphoglyceric acid again undergoes reactions and then forms glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. This is also a 3-carbon atom. This is also a 3-carbon atom, and when this phosphoglyceric acid is getting converted into glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, it is during this state that the ATP and the NADPH which was produced during the light phase is used up during this stage. This phosphoglyceric acid, it uses the ATP, NADPH, and then it undergoes a series of reaction and then forms glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. Now the glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, 2 molecules of glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, again it undergoes a series of reaction and then it gets converted to glucose. Now the glucose again gets converted to starch in the leaf, and it is stored for its growth and for the organisms on the earth. So this is how the photosynthesis, the mechanism of photosynthesis takes place. And towards the end of dark phase, what is the end product? If you are asked a question, what is the end product of dark phase, you will say the end product of dark phase is glucose. Okay, so this marks the end of the dark phase, and with this we shall continue in the next video with nutrition in human beings and other animals. Till then, Keep watching and keep learning, and thank you, friends.